she gets home from work late and immediately spots another woman's shoes by the door. Her legs go weak as she follows the sound of moaning, and she peeks in to see her husband making love with someone else. But surprisingly, it's just a weird dream that leaves her feeling uneasy. After her break, Haisu's boss calls her over and hands her a paycheck in advance. He's pretty chill and clearly values her at work, always willing to help her out. He casually checks in about her debts and asks if her husband's found a job yet. Haisu thanks him and assures him they're managing. Her husband should land a full-time gig soon and things will get better. The boss jokes that she shouldn't let her husband walk all over her. Haisu goes around serving tables, overhearing a couple chatting and thinking how nice it must be to be in love. She figures love is one of those things that's extra special when you're young. Does that mean her own life is just dull now? Meanwhile, her coworker gets annoyed about being called an ajuma, but she keeps telling Haisu she's actually really attractive, even without makeup. Plus, Haisu's got a great personality and is just fun to be around at work. After her friend's pep talk, Haisu heads home in a pretty good mood. She admires how her younger coworker is so energetic, but can't help feeling like there's nothing exciting left in her own life. Her husband's always griping about how tired and messy she looks, and he hates coming home to a wife he thinks is unkempt. Because of all their debts, Haisu won't let herself spend any money on things like makeup or self-care. She can't help but feel like their love is falling apart, kind of like an old moldy basement. These days, life just feels like endless hard work to pay off what they owe. Her husband says she ruins his appetite. Haisu feels overwhelmed as her schedule is a mess. When a coworker catches a glimpse of her jam-packed timetable, she's shocked. Haisu just brushes her off and tells her to get back to work. As she trims flowers, Haisu thinks about how much she's given up for her family. Her husband, who once promised her an easy life, ended up piling debt onto her shoulders. She forgave him and promised they'd get through it together, but as time goes on, the debts keep growing and it's getting harder for Haisu to hold back her tears. The sound of the doorbell snaps her out of it. Her coworker mentions that the good-looking guy comes in every day for a bouquet of roses and offers to help him because she has a crush. But the guy looks around and stops when he sees Haisu. He walks over, taps the counter in front of her, and asks her to take his order. Haisu finds him a little odd and asks if he'll be getting his usual roses. He smiles and says he's glad she remembers. Haisu selects a bouquet, wondering why some people always seem to attract attention, while others blend seamlessly into the background. It's obvious this guy is popular who definitely does not like her. As she hands him the flowers, she catches herself thinking about him more than she probably should. Her coworker teases that he must be interested, but Haisu honestly doesn't remember ever seeing him before. Her friend is shocked. Haisu feels a little awkward for not recognizing a supposed regular. The coworker insists the guy likes her, but Haisu just can't believe someone that attractive would notice someone much older. Her friend just laughs and says, dating older women is trendy now, and besides, Haisu's pretty. But Haisu doesn't buy it as her self-esteem's pretty much in the gutter. She can't help but wonder how a stranger could possibly see anything special in her when the man she lives with barely notices her. She blurts out that she already has a man, which totally surprises her friend. She remembers her husband coming home, complaining he's tired before heading straight to the shower and dumping his clothes on the floor. After eating, he lies down next to her, secretly checking her out even though he says she doesn't look good. Out of nowhere, he starts kissing her neck and cuddling, but Haisu just lies there. He calls her name asking if she's awake, and she just says she's tired. He grumbles that she's ignoring him and making a big deal out of her work stress. Haisu just sighs in relief and drifts off to sleep. Even when she doesn't have an early shift, she still gets up to make Minchul's breakfast, but usually skips eating herself and heads straight to work. The doorbell rings, and in walks a customer. When he answers her greeting, Haisu looks up and instantly recognizes the handsome regular. She offers to pick out his usual bouquet of roses and notices he has a really nice voice. As she hands over the order slip, her stomach growls, and she can only hope he didn't hear it. Later, Haisu's coworker sees the same good-looking guy chatting with someone and can't stop admiring him. After picking up his bouquet, he heads out, but Haisu notices he's left his sandwich on the counter. She runs out to catch him, and he looks at her with a smile, saying she can have it. Haisu grabs his jacket and insists she can't accept it. He laughs and offers her his cup too, saying it's a gift. When Haisu comes back, her friend teases her, saying the guy must really like her, that why else would he buy her a sandwich and give her his coffee? Haisu catches her reflection and just sees a tired woman with no makeup and scars that won't heal. She brushes off the idea, chalking up his actions to pity, but then wonders if he actually is interested. Either way, she decides it's best to set boundaries right away. Her friend asks if she'll ever give him a chance, but Haisu just says she's married. The friend apologizes, not realizing, and Haisu explains she has her reasons for not telling people. Her husband, after all, doesn't let her talk about their relationship even though a divorce is basically unavoidable at this point. Meanwhile, at his office, a young woman brings Minchul coffee and wishes him a nice day, which genuinely surprises him. Later, during a smoke break, an older coworker goes on about how pretty Ari is. Minchul admits she's attractive and still young, and the coworker eggs him on, telling him to take his shot while he still can. Ari blushes, and Minchul just says he'll think about it. Back at home, Haisu asks how work was, but Minchul snaps, telling her not to bother him. Haisu just wants to pay off their debts faster so she can start over someday. Minchul claims she couldn't last a day day without him and warns her not to push him too far. Then out of nowhere, he softens up and asks for money to buy perfume. Haesoo tries to explain that they can't afford it, but Minchul gets upset and calls her stingy. The next morning, Haesoo reviews their finances and realizes that no matter how much they save, they're still drowning in debt, especially given Minchul's extravagant spending habits. Wanting to keep the peace, she decides to pick up a few extra shifts and leaves him money for his perfume anyway. She's still determined to get her love life back on track. Later that night, Taeha's friend is surprised to get a dinner invite out of the blue. Taeha usually avoids noisy places, but tonight, he seems genuinely happy and excited. At the bar, a group of drunk guys is loudly debating how women should act to keep their husbands from leaving. Haesoo finds herself thinking about how loving and attentive Minchul used to be and wonders if any of this is her fault. Suddenly, a group of young guys walks in. Haesoo wonders how many there are, but then she freezes as she recognizes the handsome guy from before. The guys are all in a good mood, happy to be out for dinner together. Haesoo leads them over to a table for 4. While everyone's checking out the menu, Haesoo snaps out of her thoughts and wonders why this good-looking guy keeps showing up where she works. Her friend's teasing pops back into her mind, but she still can't believe it. Besides, she's not interested anyway. The girl next to Taeha tries to chat him up, and Haesoo finds herself wondering if they're together. The girl asks Taeha who he keeps glancing at, and his friend laughs, telling her that Taeha doesn't have a girlfriend. The girl starts acting silly, so Taeha just calms everyone down and digs into his food. Hoiji, picking up on things, realizes Taeha keeps looking at the waitress and asks if he knows her. Taeha grins and says he does, which makes Hoiji a little jealous. Down in the basement, Haesoo is cleaning up like usual when she notices her coat is ripped. Instead of tossing it, she grabs a needle and thread and starts sewing it back together. Minchul sees her and immediately picks a fight, accusing her of doing it on purpose to get his attention. He yells at her for dressing like an old woman, says she's pathetic, and claims no guy would ever be interested in her. Haesoo thinks back to her silly daydreams. Minchul, realizing he's gone too far, tries to save face by saying that even if no one wants her, he's still there. In that moment, Haesoo actually believes she only has him. The next morning, rain is in the forecast, so Haesoo starts hunting for umbrellas. She grabs a broken one for herself and leaves the good one for Minchul so he won't get wet. At the office, Eri smiles as she heads for the coffee machine. She's walking with Minchul, reaching for coffee on a high shelf, when she suddenly screams and grabs onto him, only to find that Toe's a bug. Minchul offers to get rid of it, but by then the bug has disappeared. He feels pretty good about himself being around Ari. Back at the flower shop, Haesoo's friend is sighing, clearly hoping Taeha will come by. When he does, Haesoo feels awkward and quickly asks her friend to help the customers. Taeha's surprised by how fast she runs off, but ends up placing his order with her coworker, barely even glancing Haesoo's way. At the end of her shift, Haesoo feels silly for avoiding him and promises herself she'll act normal tomorrow. But as she steps outside, her umbrella completely falls apart and the rain is pouring. She thinks about calling Minchul, but knows he'd just get annoyed. Suddenly, someone holds an umbrella over her head. She looks up and sees Taeha, who asks where she lives. Haesoo gets flustered and says she doesn't need help, but Taeha stands his ground and insists they share his umbrella. Haesoo can't believe how the universe keeps throwing her together with this guy. It almost feels like a joke. Figuring it would be even more awkward to say no, she walks home with him under his umbrella. To her surprise, he doesn't try to make small talk. The steady sound of rain actually makes her feel comfortable, and she notices how he matches his long strides to her pace. Thinking back to the restaurant, she teases him, asking if his girlfriend would mind him sharing an umbrella with another woman. Taeha looks at her, amused, and asks why she thinks he has a girlfriend. He insists it was just his friends at dinner and moves a little closer, wanting her to believe him. Haesoo feels a bit weird but says she does. Out of nowhere, a car horn blares. Taeha grabs her shoulder and quickly turns her around, shielding her from a splash. He apologizes for startling her, and she can't help but appreciate how thoughtful he is. Suddenly, she realizes they're standing really close. He jokes that his height comes in handy for blocking puddles. Haesoo looks at him, confused, and wonders if maybe he is interested in her, that why else would he act like this? Noticing his coat is soaked on one side, she asks why he's being so nice. Taeha admits she caught him off guard and says he just wants to get to know her. Haesoo tells him it's not possible, but he just smiles, almost teasing her. When she says he shouldn't waste his time on an old lady like her, he doesn't argue. When they finally get to her place, she thanks him for walking her home. Taeha asks if she's really okay being left alone with a stranger, and she tells him she's fine. He promises to respect her wishes and heads off without another word. For some reason, it stings a little that he gives up so easily. Back at home, Haesoo notices that Minchul has forgotten his umbrella. Remembering what those guys at the diner said about women taking care of their men, she decides to go meet her husband after work. When she arrives, his phone is off and he doesn't answer her texts. She's about to leave when she spots him, sharing an umbrella with a pretty young woman. Haesoo freezes. When they finally notice her, Minchul looks flustered and quickly tells Ari that Haesoo is just a family member who came to pick him up because of the rain. After Ari leaves, Minchul scolds Haesoo for coming out in this weather. When she asks about the girl, he just gets annoyed and says she's only a coworker. Haesoo suddenly remembers how Taeha wanted to get to know her and feels a wave of guilt. The next day at the flower shop, Haesoo's coworker complains about sore arms. Haesoo offers to handle things so her friend can rest. Suddenly, Taeha walks in. in. Haesoo is sure he'll come right over to her, but as she's about to offer him his usual bouquet, he just walks past her like she's invisible. It's been 2 weeks. Minchul is spending more and more time at work, and life just goes on as usual for Haesoo. On the other hand, Taeha acts as if he doesn't even know her anymore, as he doesn't talk to her or come by, instead keeping his distance. Haesoo can't help but feel a little hurt, even if she was the one who told him to back off. Maybe it's for the best. One day, a man calls her over and Haesoo ends up serving a table where he and his friends are celebrating his divorce. He's clearly ready to hit on younger girls now, and the whole group is cracking dirty jokes and having a rowdy time. Suddenly, the drunk guy stares Haesoo up and down and loudly calls for her, demanding that she pour him a drink. She feels a bit scared. The diner's owner comes over to see what's going on. The drunk guy starts complaining, and even though the owner apologizes, it's not enough for him. While her boss tries to smooth things over, Haesoo just kneels and apologizes to keep the peace, since she really doesn't want her boss to get in trouble because of her. After work, her boss scolds her for giving in to that rude customer. He's concerned as he knows she's already got a lot on her plate. Haesoo's been working hard and dealing with tough stuff since she was young. The boss offers her a ride home, but she explains she's off to another job. When he asks if she really has that much debt, it brings back memories for Haesoo, like the first time debt collectors showed up, tore apart their place, and scared them half to death. Now she lives with that fear every day. Meanwhile, as the drunk guy is heading home and bragging about how great it felt to have the waitress kneel to him, Taeha appears out of nowhere and kicks him. He grabs the guy by the hair and dares him to fight back. The drunk man swings and lands a punch, but Taeha just wipes his lip and asks if he knows who he's messing with. When the man says he doesn't, Taeha tells him he's about to find out and starts beating him up. Later that night, Haesoo is working a shift at the convenience store. She's exhausted and ends up dozing off for a moment. When she wakes up, she realizes her customer is none other than the handsome guy from the flower shop. Haesoo wonders if it's just a coincidence. Even though it's awkward, there's no one else to help him, so she rings him up. She notices he's buying a pack of bandages and can't help but worry about what happened to him. She is genuinely upset. Even though they have decided to remain strangers last time, the girl can't just ignore him. She advises him politely to apply an ointment first. After an awkward silence, Taeha leans on the counter and looms over the girl, asking to do it for him. Haesoo is embarrassed by how close he leans to her. Haesoo decides to talk to him informally since she is older and tells him to follow her. Haesoo hands him a healing ointment, but the guy says he doesn't know how to use it. The girl grumbles and says that she will do it herself. She tells him that it will sting and begins to treat the wounds. He enjoys her touch. Haesoo asks him about his age, but the guy only says he is an adult. He adds that it isn't his fault. It's just the way his life and family have been. Those words echo and she remembers herself as young and joyless. She looks into his deep eyes and sees sadness. She feels bad and lets him be an acquaintance. He asks if he can call her Nuna, to which the girl flatly refuses. The guy grins contentedly and is very happy that Haesoo sympathizes with him. He later thanks her and asks her to add him to her contact list. One evening at a company party, Minchul is enjoying himself while the boss keeps pouring airy drinks even though she is already drunk. Suddenly, Minchul discreetly swaps her glass for a glass of beer. Ari doesn't expect this. She is grateful to him. Colleagues start asking Minchul about the type of women he dislikes. He says he can't stand ajumas who are perpetually tired and neglected. Colleagues start teasing him. Minchul snorts, saying that he prefers beautiful, well-groomed, and young girls. In the convenience store, Haesoo stands staring at her phone. Earlier, she and Taeha exchanged contacts. She thinks he has an unusual name. At the same time, Minchul does not answer her, and she also decides not to distract him. Minchul decides to walk Ari home as they get very drunk. Suddenly, Ari clings to Minchul and confesses that she has liked Minchul for a long time. She reaches for him and offers to go to her house for a drink just for them. Minchul is spending the night with Ari. As they kiss, he feels like he's suffocating in the sticky summer air, but he loves every second and lets himself get completely carried away. Meanwhile, Haesoo is heading home, exhausted after her night shift, only to find that Minchul isn't there. He's fast asleep in the arms of his young girlfriend. Later that morning, Minchul calls Haesoo, claiming the company party ran late and he crashed at a nearby bathhouse. He sounds annoyed that she's even worried and hangs up on her. Haesoo feels guilty for making a fuss, but the sting of betrayal is still fresh. She can't believe how much their love has faded. While all this is going on, Taeha runs into Jihoo and calls out his name. Jihoo is surprised after all they haven't talked in years. Taeha was always the popular guy at school, while Jihoo was the nerd. However, Taeha never picked on anyone. Now, Taeha asks Jihoo for a favor and wants to swap shoes with him, acting super friendly. Jihoo is taken aback since his sneakers are cheap compared to Taeha's nice ones, but he agrees. Honestly, he thinks he's getting a pretty good deal. Later, Huiji comes over to Taeha and asks what he's listening to, only to find out it's an old love song for ajumas. Then she notices his shoes and finds it odd he's wearing such beat-up sneakers. Their friends walk by, clearly jealous that girls always seem drawn to Taeha. They start teasing him about stealing Huiji away, and you can see Dongguk getting jealous and mad. Back at the flower shop, Haesoo's coworker sighs and says she must have been wrong about the handsome guy liking Haesoo, since he hardly ever wants her to serve him anymore. She still daydreams about him, wondering if he'll show up for flowers today. Haesoo keeps her feelings feelings to herself. Just then, Taeha walks in and heads straight for Haesu's counter asking for a bouquet. He leans in and teases that they're now acquaintances. Haesu gets a little flustered and starts putting together some roses. Taeha is full of jokes, hinting for a discount since they know each other. Then he asks if she's free after work. Haesu just sighs and asks if Taeha's trying to get himself scolded. Taeha is waiting for her at the entrance. The girl has to get to her next task and doesn't have time to hang out. The guy mentions he remembers she works at the meat counter, and he's a bit bummed out, saying being an adult is boring. Haesu notices that even though he's young, he's really tall and broad. He catches her looking and asks what she's thinking. Haesu, who's always straightforward, comments on his height. Sensing he's a little jealous, she reassures him, saying he's definitely taller than him. The guy just smiles, amused by how honest and naive she is. As they walk together, Haesu notices his worn-out sneakers, which still suit him. She asks why he spends money on flowers every day instead of something more practical. Taeha answers thoughtfully that there's not much joy in life, so why not do little things to feel good? Haesu is touched by how quietly and sincerely he says this. She feels a bit embarrassed that she's never even considered that flowers could make her happy. She thanks Taeha for keeping her company, and he gives her a genuine smile. Meanwhile, Ari is looking for Minchul. She overhears a coworker talking to him, making suggestive comments and asking if anything has happened between them yet. Minchul shuts him down, pointing out that the guy has been at the company forever without advancing, and perhaps he should focus on his work instead of gossiping. Minchul tells him to knock it off and walks away. Just then, Ari appears and hugs him from behind. She worries Minchul might just be playing with her, but realizes he's actually a good guy and decides she's never letting him go. Back at home, a carefully prepared dinner is waiting for Minchul, but he's out having a carefree meal with his mistress. Meanwhile, Haesu is getting sweet, encouraging texts from Taeha. Then, a super drunk man stumbles into the lobby, asks for a room number, and demands someone call a girl for him to have some fun. Haesu, staying polite, asks for his card to pay for the room. The drunk hands over his driver's license instead and starts causing trouble. Suddenly, another man comes in and books all the available rooms for the night. It's actually Taeha doing Haesu a favor. The girls are surprised, but now Haesu can finally go home. When she gets home, she sees that the food she left for Minchul is still untouched. Haesu keeps getting sweet texts from Taeha. He's always checking in, making sure she's okay and wishing her a good day. Dongguk notices Taeha smiling at his phone and asks what's up. Taeha surprises him by saying he's texting with a girl. Meanwhile, Minchul is being unexpectedly nice to Haesu and asks to try her cooking. He compliments her skills and realizes he's been too hard on her lately. In his mind, he even thinks cheating can sometimes be good for a long-term relationship. He thanks Haesu for the money for his perfume. Then, suddenly, he notices how attractive she looks more so than Ari. He gets a little carried away, biting her ear and neck. Haesu tells him to stop because she's late for work and Minchul backs off. Haesu worries he might be upset, but he just feels sorry for her. Minchul then starts texting Ari, enjoying their easy conversation. He thinks about going shopping with her, and remembers how when he used to shop with Haesu, she always picked out the most boring and cheapest clothes. So now, he's looking forward to hanging out with Ari instead. At the same time, Taeha meets up with one of his subordinates who's been digging up info on Haesu's husband. Taeha burns a photo with a lighter, letting the flames consume it. Haesu's shift at the motel is almost over. Out of the blue, Taeha texts her asking if she can meet him for a bit after work. When she comes out and sees him, she thinks he looks especially handsome and confident today. She tells him so, and Taeha is happy to see her, even if just for a short while. He jokes that the alley is pretty dark and maybe dangerous, but Haesu laughs and says he's so big he's like a human shield. Taeha playfully asks if he should walk behind her. Haesu sighs and tells him to just walk and be quiet. As they walk, Taeha slows down and notices the bite mark on her neck. Jealousy flares up and he suddenly pulls Haesu close. Haesu asks Taeha what's going on. In a quiet voice, he says she must have gotten bitten by a bug. He gently wraps his fingers around her neck, looking at the mark. Haesu is confused since bugs aren't really around this time of year. Suddenly, she remembers that Minchul might have left that mark, and she feels embarrassed but tries to brush it off as a bug bite. Taeha suggests putting a bandage on it. He softly runs his finger over the spot, but decides not to push it or make her feel awkward. Out of nowhere, he asks why she hasn't been replying to his texts. He admits it makes him jealous and a little sad to be left on red. Haesu's never gotten a message like that before. She's not sure how to respond, or even if she should. She's hit with a wave of guilt and apologizes to him. Then she remembers how hurt she felt when Minchul used to ignore her texts, and realizes Taeha must feel the same. Taeha tells her she doesn't have to apologize. He's the one who keeps reaching out, and it's not her job to make others happy if she doesn't want to. His words really get to her, so she decides to buy herself a flower as a little treat. She heads home before her next shift to put the flower in a vase, and it actually makes her happy. She decides to share this small moment with Taeha. Around the same time, Minchul swings by the house unexpectedly. He's surprised to see Haesu at home instead of work, and then he notices the rose. He asks where it came from, and Haesu says she just bought a single rose and didn't spend much. Suddenly, Minchul is overcome with emotion and rushes to kiss her. He can't help himself. His feelings get the best of him. He says he only has time for a quickie, but Haesu hesitates, unsure if anything will actually happen. That annoys Minchul and he snaps, saying she'd never get pregnant pregnant anyway. Meanwhile, Taeha is happy to get Haisu's message. Then, a group of girls walks up to him, saying it's such a big coincidence to see him there. Taeha just smirks, thinking that every so-called coincidence is really just a mix of little inevitabilities. Still, he's curious enough to go along with it, even though he's pretty sure the story will end in tears. Ari approaches Minchul. He grabs her right away. Still annoyed after what happened with Haisu, he takes advantage of how willing Ari is that she doesn't push him away. It's her first time in the car like this, and she actually enjoys the view. Minchul asks if she's uncomfortable being together without protection, but Ari is so head over heels for him that she doesn't care. Meanwhile, Haisu is distracted after finding lipstick on her husband's shirt. Everything feels like it's spiraling out of control. She tries to convince herself it's probably just a mistake. She's also worried about upsetting Minchul. By some unlucky chance, Haisu overhears a client's phone conversation and ends up comforting a friend whose husband cheated. Usually, work helps Haisu forget her own problems, but today, everything just reminds her of her worst moments. Taeha's also in a bad mood. The more he tries to make Haisu happy, the more Minchul seems to hurt her. Haisu can't help but notice how tall Taeha is. Out of nowhere, he asks if he can call her Nuna. Right away, Haisu recognizes him and asks about his helmet. She guesses he's a delivery guy and Taeha doesn't deny it. As she gives him advice, Taeha leans in and asks if she's worried about him, but Haisu just scolds him. Since Taeha's hungry, she tells him he should find a new job if this one doesn't even give him time to eat. Taeha just laughs at how much she cares. Standing close to her, he says he can't quit because his work is really important. She believes him and gives him 2 sandwiches for dinner. He thanks her and asks for her favorite one. When he gets closer, Haisu notices the tattoo on his arm. When Haisu asks about his tattoo, Taeha wonders if maybe she doesn't like tattoos. He jokes, asking if she wants him to get rid of it, but then she quietly asks about the scars on his arm. Taeha is caught off guard by her concern and notices there are tears in her eyes. He's touched that she cares and gently tells her the scars are from a minor accident. Haisu looks at him anxiously, realizing he's probably not telling the truth. She picks out a tasty meal for him and can't help but wonder why Taeha gives her such mixed feelings, though she's sure she likes him. At this moment, he seems like such a mystery to her, all covered in scars and wounds. Meanwhile, Ari is lying on Minchul's chest and blurts out that she wants to marry him. Minchul immediately tenses up and tries to play it off by joking that she's still too young to be thinking about marriage. Ari buys it when he tells her she should enjoy her youth. All the while, Minchul is thinking about how close he came to getting caught. He also suspects Ari must come from a pretty wealthy family, judging by her lifestyle. Ari asks what kind of family life Minchul imagines after marriage. He pictures a cozy apartment, a car big enough for the family, and 1 child. He remembers the child they lost, but right now, he knows he can't afford to have a kid. Ari hugs him tighter and insists that his dream will definitely come true. As night falls over the city, Taeha remembers a recent conversation with someone at work who thought he had a Buddhist saying tattooed on his wrist. Taeha realizes Haisu is the only one who's noticed the white scars hiding under the black ink. He tells himself he's just waiting for her current relationship to end, like any adult would, but he knows it's not that simple. The root of all pain is attachment, and now he can't let go. Later, Haisu is late getting home and spots a man walking toward her. To her surprise, he freezes in fear and suddenly runs down the nearest alley without saying a word. When Haisu gets home, Minchul is already asleep. Then, out of nowhere, Minchul's phone lights up with a call from Ari. Haisu spends the whole day feeling lost. She wonders if she should have answered that call, maybe finally getting some answers. But honestly, she's scared she wouldn't be able to handle the truth. At work, a coworker shows her pictures from a friend's wedding and asks about her own wedding plans. All those questions send her down memory lane. She and Minchul only filed the paperwork. There was never a big ceremony. Minchul suggested they just go eat some meat at a diner to save money, but eventually gave in when she wanted more. He promised they'd have a proper wedding someday and even talked about a honeymoon in Hawaii, but that never happened. All Haisu really wants is to feel loved. Meanwhile, Taeha is feeling pretty disappointed. He thought he and Haisu were getting close, but now she's not even replying to his texts. Suddenly, his new bodyguard interrupts his thoughts, flicking a lighter. Taeha, munching on a lollipop, jokes that if the guy wants fire so badly, he could light his candy. He also mentions he hasn't seen him around before. The man says it's his first day. With a straight face, Taeha asks if the new guy has ever buried someone before. The bodyguard looks nervous, but Taeha quickly says he's just kidding. Still, the new guy can't help but feel a little uneasy that something about Taeha's look is pretty intimidating. Back at work, Haisu overhears 2 friends talking, and one of them is cheating. Memories of Minchul's weird behavior come rushing back. Panic sets in as she wonders what she'll do if it turns out to be true. The anxiety is almost too much to handle, so she asks her boss if she can leave early. Her boss suggests she take some time to rest. Thinking about Taeha's kind words, Haisu heads straight to Minchul's office. When a man asks her what she's doing there, she hesitates before saying she's looking for Minchul. Her eyes clouded with worry, she says she's family and wants to know if he's working late tonight. The man calls the office to check if Minchul is there. Haisu tries to convince herself that the tear-stained pillows and the nightmares are just her imagination. When the man asks for Minchul, Ari recognizes Haisu and Minchul is clearly shocked to see her there. He quickly excuses himself from Ari, grabs Haisu roughly and drags her out of the office, demanding an explanation in a harsh tone. Haisu freezes in fear every time she hears a yell, but she remembers Taeha's words and somehow manages to ask her husband about the lipstick stain she found on his shirt. Mincheol is caught off guard. He never expected quiet, obedient Haisu to confront him like this. He snaps at her, calling her crazy for coming to his work and making a scene over something so trivial. Without giving her any real answer, he storms off, warning her never to show up there again. Afterward, Haisu wanders the streets, half out of it. Taeha, meanwhile, threatens anyone who dares call Haisu a psycho. He follows her quietly, closing the distance, hoping she'll notice he's there. It hurts him to realize she's so caught up with her husband that she never notices his feelings or even little things, like the first snowfall of the year. He warns her it'll rain after the snow, but she just shivers in the cold. With all the pain weighing on her, Haisu finally breaks down, sobbing loudly, almost as if the sound of the rain could drown out her pain. Taeha's heart aches for her. He thinks she should have known what kind of man Mincheol is. He decides that today will be the last day he lets her cry like this. The next morning, Hwajung notices Haisu isn't herself and asks if she's okay. Haisu brushes it off and heads outside, thinking about her wedding anniversary and hoping she can patch things up with Mincheol. Suddenly, Taeha shows up and teases her, asking if she's slacking off.
And hey, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Zucker Manhwa for more epic recaps coming your way.